And welcome to You Can Sketch 2, number 4. I'm quite excited about this one because the last video we talked about perspective. The one before that we drew a single building, and now we're going to try and do a whole street scene, putting together everything that we've talked about in the last couple of videos. So here's the scene which we're actually going to try and sketch. That's Station Road in Port Talbot, which is my local town, and I really like it because Station Road is sort of like a remnant of what more of the town actually used to be like. You can see by looking at the size and scale of some of the buildings there that in times gone by there has been quite a bit of money in Port Talbot, and I just think I just really like the look of it. So if you want to have a go at this one yourself, if you go to my blog, and you'll have a chance to click on it at the end of this video. There is a section where you can download all of these photographs to do at your own leisure. So enough of that. I've got my pen, I've got my pad, and I've got my photograph. So let's start. So there you go. Same old un-high-tech method as we've used before. Now what I'm actually going to do for this street scene is I'm going to sketch out the basic idea of it first. I didn't do this with the building. Now as with the building, I need to decide where I'm going to make my first marks on the page, because everything else I do is going to be based on this. And actually, I've got the idea that this fence in the foreground may well give us quite a nice place to start, because you can see how it corresponds with the line of buildings on this side, but also it gives us an idea of the height as well. So I'm looking at it, and it's not quite a quarter of the way across the page, and it's about a third of the way up. So if I mark that out here, now halfway down the page would be here, so not quite a quarter would be here, and that is about a third of the way down. And thankfully, it goes all the way to the bottom edge of the page, just here. I just sketched the top of the post in. I'll join those up, add little bits of the detail on it, but that's really given me a nice reference point to start from. And there we are. So you can see that I've just quickly sketched in the lines. You can see the way the perspective's working. Far greater slant on the bottom line here. I'll put in the details of the railings and everything later on, but this has given me at least a start. Now if we go back and look at the photograph, and this is a really nice bit, because these buildings, we can start to outline them because they're more or less straight above the railings here. So the next job I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly sketch in the outlines of the building and the roof. Now starting about there, okay, it is. Okay, so we sketch in the roof lines coming up there. It's just like a street lamp there. This comes up quite a bit higher, and again the roof, that one there, again massively much higher up for this roof here, with another street lamp intruding there. Just finish that off, another one here, and a much more clearly defined roof here. That's lovely. Okay, that's fine. Just to show you what I've done now. Very quickly sketched in the roof line of the buildings on this side of the street. And that gives me something to work on now, to work across and then to do the lines on this side. So we'll do that now, again, much the same way as I did the last. Okay, so if I just show you there you can see I've sketched in the roof line on the other side, literally just the roof line, and chances are I'm going to have to do some remedial work and slightly change things as we actually get on to putting in the details of the building. But I'm not unhappy with that. If we compare that with the original photograph, it doesn't take a huge amount of imagination to see how the two roof lines work together. So what's next? Well, I think next we need to think about looking at putting in the rough idea of where the bottoms of the buildings are going to be and where the curbs are, bearing in mind that we've got the complication of the cars to add here. So if I show you how I do one side, this side here, and then I'll pause the camera while I do the other side, okay? It's, you know, you're all smart people. You don't need me to do it twice for you, I'm sure. So here we go. Now, one useful thing is I can see that there's a post which is pretty much matching up with the top of this building here, but also the vertical here. And that goes nicely down pretty much all the way till it's overlapping with the fence there. And just put the detail in. Lovely, that's going to make things a lot easier because everything on this side of the post is going to be cars, whereas this side of the post here I can start putting in the curb. I'm just going to very, very quickly sketch in the outlines of the edges of the cars. You know, I can use shading, which will help me here. Now this is the car which is out furthest, and there's another one out there. There we are. Okay, just sketch in I think that's going to need a little remedial work later, but for now, let's work with what we've got. So here you see there's this sign which, because of the roadworks, they are actually doing roadworks a little bit further down, which you can't see in this particular photograph, for which you can be quite glad because it's nothing to write home about. And this is a sign for it which appears to have just fallen on its edge. So if I just quickly sketch that in there. Okay, now that gives us something to work with because that's where our pavement is going to end. And if I just join those up there, they're quite a dark, thick edge, and that comes out all the way out here. Okay, that's quite nice. I've got just an idea of pavement in there, and it also helps me just quickly. There's another road sign which has been put on the pavement there. So if I just add that in, and there you go. So you can see, you know, I've got my curb there, pavement there, just a blocky idea of where the cars are going to be and an idea of how far down the shops go. Okay, it's not perfect, it's nowhere near perfect, but it's just to give me an idea when I'm filling in the details. Now, I'm going to quickly do the same on this side here. And there you go. The thing which really helped this one was sketching in the little car there. Because after this car, there's a long line of cars stretching away towards the horizon line there. So the edge of the shops just start to come here. So let's have a look at that for a moment. and compare it with the photograph. And you can see we've got the basics in. I'm not too unhappy with the proportions at all. And I think what might be useful is if we start drawing in now some of the building furniture. When I say building furniture, I mean things like doorways, windows, columns, anything like that. So I'm going to actually start on that on this side now. Now if we go a little bit closer, you can see the details are far less clear further in the distance. That stands to reason, doesn't it? So what I'm going to try and do is just do enough lines to just give the suggestion that there's windows and features there, just to trick the eye. I'll talk more about that in a moment. So very quickly, now I'm looking at it and I can see, okay, around about here, there's just like a little storefront there, and a couple of lines just will suggest openings. Slightly darker areas for shadows suggest doorways. There you go. I'll put a line there. And also I notice there's quite a few street lamps there, which is lovely. That all adds a little bit of texture. If I just sketch those in quickly. Now the edges of my roofs, I can see if I look at the photo, they are just that little bit darker than what's all around them. So again, if I just suggest some lighter areas and more shaded areas there, that's going to suggest the architectural details without us having to completely sketch them in. And again, should give the eye enough information that it will start making sense of everything. I don't know if you saw my video on perspective, but perspective is basically, it's the way an artist uses to give the impression of depth to a picture to make things look further away or closer. So there we are, we've just started sketching that in, and you can see there's just there the little hint of doorways, whatever. Obviously the closer I come to the edge, which is actually the nearer to me as a viewer, then it's going to be a lot more detailed. So I'll show you that in a moment. Okay, let's have a progress check, shall we, on where we are. You can see I've sketched in quite a lot of the details, nothing too clear or distinct, just enough sight lines to suggest what's actually going on here. What I'm sketching at the moment, I think that's what used to be the 147 Snooker Club. Tell you a little story about the 147. I was a student teacher 30 years ago in a school which is actually on the same road. And when you're a student teacher, you only teach so many hours a day. You know, they don't, quite rightly, they don't let you loose on, give you a full timetable and let you loose on too many of the classes. Do you know what? I'm going to use my slightly thicker pen to shade this bit in. So one day, another of the students who was in the school at the same time as me, whose name I will not reveal in order to protect the guilty, suggested, but you know, what are we doing hanging about here, I think were his words. Why don't we nip down the road? I've noticed there's the snooker club, the 147 just down the road. Why don't we nip down and have a game of snooker? We're not teaching till after lunch. And to my shame, I agreed. And as we were walking down just outside the club, who should we meet but the head teacher, who looked at us quizzically as if he sort of vaguely remembered who we were. And then it suddenly came to him and he said, may I ask where you two think you're going? And me, I was all for saying, "Oh, we're straight back to school, sir," or something along those lines. But my companion had the presence of mind to say, "Well, we're not actually teaching again till after lunch, sir, so we thought we'd pop down for a game of snooker." Oh, I thought the head was going to explode. "Snooker?" he said. You're going to have to forgive me. Despite living here for 30 years, I can't do a Welsh accent to save my life. "Snooker?" he said. "Snooker?" he said. "You wicked, wicked men." Now, he actually did use that phrase. "Snooker, you wicked, wicked men." He looked at us, wagged a finger and said, "I hope you get caught." Now, I can laugh about it now. I did worry about it a little bit at the time, but that was the 147 Snooker Club, which was just that building there. So, back to the sketch and carry on putting the sight lines. I'm going to be a little bit more distinct on this part now. I showed you how I sketched in Windows when we did the Craddock Arms in the second video. So I'm going to sketch these in and I'll come back to you when I've done it. Sorry. And there you go. You can see I've got some of the windows in now, and it is actually starting to look a lot more like buildings on the side of a street. Now I'll show you something as well. If we compare the two, you'll notice that I'm actually only going as far as here. But what have we always said? We're not looking to make a perfect photographic representation. This is a sketch, and I found it more useful just to crop it round about here. Okay, so I'm going to finish sketching in the buildings on this side of the street there. Then we'll have a look and we'll decide where we're going to tackle next. And just share a little bit of this with you. We're closer to the viewer now, closer to me now, so we can actually be quite a bit more defined in the marks that we're making here. I notice this one goes and has window ledge there. That's a bit steep. If I bring that down, it's not a perfect match-up at all, but there you go. Put in the window frame there. It's all really quite dark, particularly at the bottom here. If we do that and then maybe just hatch the rest there. Yeah, that's quite nice. Okay, details on the side. That's coming down in a sort of column effect, really. Suggest that. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to go further down now. Sorry, move this back. I'm going to go further down and look where the shop frontage, the signage is, which is just about there. And that should work out okay. And this is a smaller one, which is fine. And it comes out about this far. Nicely done. Whole edge of the shop front goes down pretty much about that far, I would say. And this one, you don't see a great deal of the shop front of the entranceway at all. That's really rather nice. A very, very dark, dingy sort of window thing going on here. Which I will shade in after. That's nice and quite a heavy sort of moulding going on there. And almost immediately above it, you have the window, which has just arched round like that. Okay, there we are. I noticed that there is another one this side, though it's just obscured by the edge of the next building. So we can just kind of hint that, and that will make a nice edge too. So looking down here, as I did say, the edge of the shop is fairly thick there. Hey, that works for me. I'm just going to shade that in now, so bear with me. And there you go. We've completed the buildings on that side of the street. I'm just going to do a little bit more work on this side now. I'm just going to add in a few lines. I could sketch out the whole of the pavement, all the cracks. Personally, I don't think that would be as effective as just sketching in enough just to give the idea. Trompe l'oeil, remember, would fool the eye into thinking that they're all there by putting a few there. So I'm going to do that quickly now, and I'll show you in a second. And there you go. So that's pretty much one half of our picture finished. You can see all I've done is just a few lines to suggest where the paving slabs are. Added in the first little set of railings. So again, just straight lines, very close together, whereas they'll be a lot further apart here. Why? Because things which are in the distance look smaller. And you might notice as well, I've just put in a tiny bit of detail on the cars there, just a few marks to suggest shadows and just give the eye enough to work on. Now I'm going to stop this video here because I do find that once I get past half an hour, it takes an awful long time to upload. So in my next video, then we'll finish off and look at how we do the buildings on this side. So hopefully see you then. Bye.